You've probably heard the term climate change, maybe even climate neutral or 1% for the planet, but what do those things really mean and why do they matter to us? Hey friends, what's up? It's Abby, and today I'll be sharing 5 different reasons why I started to care about climate change. And disclaimer, I hope it convinces you to as well, at least a little bit. The 5 reasons are: 1, it affects other people; 2, it affects nature; 3, it's costing us money; 4, it's hurting our health; and 5, despite all this, there are tons of creative and really cool solutions. First, I think it's important to discuss what climate change is. And I'm no science teacher, so I accept all fact checking and actually encourage that. We'll all think of a different thing when someone says, what do you envision when you hear the word climate change? And for me, it really goes back to the basics of climate versus weather. So weather is what we see on the day-to-day, and it's tangible, right? Because especially if you grew up somewhere like me in the Midwest, in Michigan, in the winter, it can be sunny and beautiful in the morning, and then in the afternoon, it's snowing. And then maybe by the evening, you have a whole foot of snow. And that's very visible. But climate is harder because it's over a longer period of time. Give or take, I think 30 years plus is what they attribute to be climate. And that is not something that we can see, at least in our daily lives. And what's interesting about climate change is that for many, many years, we know that it has been induced by humans, that the activities and the things that we do actually make a difference. While temperature can change due to natural things like the sun's activity or volcanic eruptions, primarily right now it has been changing due to the burning of fossil fuels like coal and gas. And if we think about it, there are almost 8 billion of us. Actually, I think we've surpassed 8 billion people now. And compared to, I don't know what the population was like hundreds of years ago, but I'm sure it wasn't near as many as 8 billion. The world only has so many resources. We've built complete cities. We have taken forests down to build concrete buildings, and we now fly in airplanes that also takes a lot of fuel and energy. And so those are the things I think of when it comes to us having a role in the way that the world is playing out. This is my climate origin story. If you've watched my fast fashion video or you've talked to me in person about just why I care about sustainability, it starts with fashion. When I graduated from high school, I had wanted to go to California to a fashion school and was really interested in clothes and style in general. But I ended up taking a year off of a gap year, and it was during that gap year that I watched a documentary just on a random day. I was chilling in my room and I clicked this on Netflix, and it was called The True Cost. And that documentary literally changed my life. Like, there aren't many things that I've been like, oh, that was life-changing. I actually can't have too many of those. But this was truly, like, looking back, I'm like, wow, I'm really glad that I watched that, because it completely flipped my perspective on just what I wear in general and like how it's made. It covered the Rana Plaza collapse, which was a factory collapse in Bangladesh in 2013. It killed over 1,000 people, and there were more injuries as well. But this could have been prevented. The factory owners knew that the infrastructure of the building wasn't great, but they continued to force their workers to work there. It's even understanding that in such a technologically advanced world, we still have a hand in most things. I used to just think machines made our clothes, honestly. Like, you walk into a mall and there are just clothes everywhere and products everywhere. But how often are we thinking where those things actually came from when we're buying them? Some of us are fortunate to be living in a world where our day-to-day isn't us just trying to fend for ourselves and survive. In the past, I feel like, you'd hunt, you'd gather, you'd do all these things just to try to meet your basic living needs. But the world today, some of us are living such different lives where we have access to so many different things at the tip of our fingers. I've read about cotton and agricultural farmers where they're subjected to being surrounded by pesticides and chemicals and all these different things that are toxic, and they have to deal with those repercussions through their health mentally and physically. And the suicide rate of farmers, I think, is really high compared to other jobs. Those people are working just for our consumerism. Personally, for me, my faith is also involved, because when I started learning about these things, it just felt so unjust. It felt so unjust. But no matter your religion or your background, it's just good human practice to think about others as much as possible, especially when the people that are affected the most are the people that are contributing the least. And I know it's not easy, and we're not trained to think this way, so yeah, maybe that's why I started to care about it even more, because I was just like, how do we not talk about this in places like school or church or work? Numero dos. I haven't witnessed this very much firsthand, and I'm hoping I don't have to. I do have a lot of places that I still want to travel, and I remember when I was younger, my family went on a cruise, and one of the excursions was going on a boat in the ocean with a glass bottom, so you could see the life underneath and the coral reefs and all of those things. And it's predicted by 2050 that 70 to 90% of the coral reefs will be gone. And this doesn't even have an impact as far as, the beauty of nature, but coral reefs have an important role in nature, as well as many other living and non-living things around the world. When I think about how nature is affected by wildfires right now, or just glaciers melting. I've never been to a national park. I've technically been to Acadia, but I haven't been to any of the ones out west, and I really want to see those. I did research last year to go to Yellowstone, and part of it was shut down due to severe weather, and I know more and more this is going to keep happening. And even friends I've talked to that traveled somewhere once and then went back a few years later have said that they've seen a big difference. And so nature's beauty, the way we use it as well for tourism and helping out local economies, it'll be really interesting to see how this plays out, and I think those are other reasons why it's important to care. One really important way to frame climate change is to not say climate change at all and pretend you don't even know what climate change is, but rather to inform people about how they can make changes in their life that will save them money and be beneficial to them. That's something I find super interesting and want to get better at communicating with people in my life. I don't know if you had this in school, but we had people from energy companies come to our school and give us a bag. And they gave us a more efficient faucet thing, spout, and maybe an LED light bulb, maybe something else. This is bringing back memories in my head. But those switches from incandescent to LED to turning off your water in between brushing your teeth, while they may seem minute, they'll actually help your energy bill, and using less energy will help the environment. So if people aren't caring about climate change for any other reasons, you can at least care because it can benefit you monetarily. Other quick examples might be drying your clothes less often and air drying, public transportation as often as possible, biking, and using less hot water and water in general. We see this play out right now, even if we're not personally affected. Think about California. I feel like most of us at least know someone or know someone who knows someone that has been affected by the wildfires. And even thinking about New York and flooding, or back in Michigan where we're just not seeing as much snow, these are all things that have an indirect correlation or a direct correlation on our health. I love an occasional hot yoga or sauna, very occasionally, but I definitely wouldn't want those things all of the time. And part of climate change is that the average global temperature is increasing and days are hotter, longer. This affects our mental and our physical health because extreme heat creates more stress on our bodies because they have to work harder to cool themselves down. It says somewhere, it meaning resources and science, that we just get angrier, or like our tempers are worse when it's hotter longer, which if I'm thinking on a personal level, when it's super hot in New York or Michigan and I feel like I can't escape it, I do feel like I'm just angrier or more irritable. Looking at this chart by PwC, higher levels of carbon dioxide and air pollution are leading to increased allergies, asthma, and respiratory issues. This reason to care also has a broad range of topics that could fall underneath. Thinking about heat, thinking about looping back to fast fashion, I just finished this book called To Die For. Die is like D-Y-E. Oh my gosh, when I've thought about fast fashion having an implication on the people and planet, it's always been for the workers and then, the earth. But when I was reading this book, it really exposed the ways that toxins and chemicals used in our clothes, like the things used to dye our clothes and the way that our materials have been processed, is hurting our health. The book actually scared me. I haven't had to put a book down in a while. But some of the case studies were just really interesting, and one of them had to do with Alaska Airlines and how they got new uniforms, and they were designed by Zach Posen, who, if you watched, I believe it was Rent the Runway or one of those, that's how I found out about him. Anywho, they get these uniforms and they have to wear these uniforms every single day. And flight attendants started breaking out in rashes or having increased autoimmune issues. Just even compared to that one case study, I'm like, that's really interesting, and again, something that's not talked about. Ending on a positive note is that there are so many cool and creative solutions, and that's at least where I get the most excited, because I'm so inspired by many friends and organizations that I follow online. Just a couple that quickly come to mind are Earthrise. I think they do such an amazing job of combining creative and climate education, or Imagine 5, also similar vein as far as beautiful content, video, and photo. My friend Olivia at Fancy Scraps talks about low or zero waste with food and how you can really utilize every part of an ingredient. For example, she shared about corn and how we can eat the cob of the corn, which is typically just thrown to waste, but instead she put it in a blender and made a really beautiful dish out of it. Fab Scrap, also based here in Brooklyn, they're a nonprofit that takes leftover fabrics and scraps from other companies that would typically go to a landfill. And then there's companies like Plain Products who are thinking about their packaging and how the way they do business affects the environment. Their bottles are made of aluminum, which are very recyclable, and they have a refill system where you can send back your bottle. Or Stasher bags, which are a replacement for plastic bags made out of silicone. Or Pillowcase, which makes their phone cases out of flax seeds so they can be compostable. And you don't have to start your own business, but you can start supporting these different businesses and purchasing more local. There are just different things from an individual to a corporate level that are fun and exciting and just bring me hope. Looping back to the very beginning, I know I didn't explain what some of the terms like climate neutral or 1% for the planet are, but these are terms that I started to be more aware of once I started to care. There are so many reasons why we could care about climate change, but I find it helpful to hear other people's stories for relatability and also for inspiration. So I hope this encouraged you at least a little bit. I feel like people want to know more and they want to care and they want to make a difference, but they're just unsure of how, and it can also be a bit daunting and ambiguous. So many thoughts, but we'll wrap it up here. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you liked, please make sure to thumbs up and subscribe and leave me a comment below to say hi. I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day, and I will see you in my next video. Bye!